called my dad, and I said, I want to be Muslim. And get a better understanding of what you see as opposed to just accepting things on face value.
This guy holds me and he pushes it all the way to the back.
Went to the young man and I said, well, if you are supposed to do that, how do you know where my son was looking?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope all you guys are doing well. Welcome to this episode of Spiritual Incognito. I have a very special guest with me today, Brother Rashid Thomas, aka as the African American Power Ranger, one of the OGs in the community. He's got a lot of stories to share with us. How are you today, Brother Rashid?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well, brother.
It's honestly a pleasure having you with us today.
So,
tell us more about yourself. We see you at Salam, we see you doing photography and videography in a lot of places. We see you, doing all these sorts of things.
Bismillah. Yes, my name is Rashid Thomas. Sometimes go by with Rashid bin Qadir Thomas in honor of my dad. I was born in San Francisco, and my dad was Muslim and my mother not. But in 1998, I decided I needed to become a little more serious about my spirituality and about God. So I decided at that point to go ahead and take Shahada.
So prior to that, you were like, in the middle, I guess agnostic, I'd say?
Yeah, we can sort of say. And what's interesting, as a child, I used to call myself a Muslim Christian. So I kind of mixed the two because when I was with my dad, I was at the mosque. And when I was with my mom, I was at church. So I literally consider myself a Muslim Christian, not clearly knowing the separation between the two.
What was your family's background back then? I think that's also important to put everything into perspective. Because I think back then there was a lot of, civil unrest back in the day. So
Yes.
What was...
Yeah, and I'll date myself a little bit, but you're absolutely right. My parents I was born in the 60s. Being a young child in the 70s, there was a lot of civil unrest and protests and speaking out, definitely. And my dad being a part of the Nation of Islam, that was definitely true. Where we saw a lot of brothers active in the community and doing things. But meanwhile, my mom being Christian, I was definitely active in the church, no doubt about that. I was on the youth usher board and things of that nature. But when I went to Oakland, it was just the nation at that particular time.
Yeah, tell me how that was. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to know. I mean, myself as well, because that was well before I was born. Yeah.
The nation... as a child, what I remember is it was just a very, very tight community. And a lot of people coming. My dad at that particular time was a part of the Nation of Islam, but he also had a bakery and a snack shop, so a tiny snack shop. So a lot of people in the community would come in there. A lot of people from the nation would come in there, and just seeing the brotherhood and the camaraderie was really nice to see as growing up.
Did you guys get any sort of death threats or anything like that, or was it like any suspense sort of thing?
I would suspect a lot of that was going on, but my dad was very good at protecting us from a lot of that. Being young, but then later on growing up in teenage years is kind of when that separation happened with the Nation of Islam. I didn't see a lot of at that particular point, but as a youth, I can just say a lot of people used to support the businesses, and my dad was very good at protecting me from a lot of that. Although I would go to the masjid and I would sit in the metal chairs and go through the metal detectors and all of that. I saw all of that as a kid. But the political side of it, he kind of kept me away from that.
The thing is, I actually wanted to ask something that's really important is what you call the value of mentors, because out of that Nation of Islam stories, actually two things that stuck out to me. One was that a lot of the youth nowadays, right, they go to the masajid, they go with their parents, but then once they're 18, they're off the cuff. They do all sorts of things just because subhanAllah, just a year or two ago, this guy was at the masjid. What happened to him? So I think you were the same, you calling yourself a Muslim Christian, to that extent of not even identifying as a full Muslim, although you do used to go to the masjid. So a lot of the youth, I would say, they're somewhat in your shoes. And also the second thing is mentorship. Did that have any value? Because I think that's something that we really miss out on nowadays. We don't really have that many role models in the community or mentorship. It's just, just off Instagram. Most of our inspirations are off social media and YouTube, whatever. We don't really have somebody who you can look up to, somebody who, like, person that you can speak to, or who can guide you along the way. So that's really important.
I think that's really, really important and unfortunate. I think within the masjid nowadays, it's our job as older people to establish a brotherhood and a bond with brothers and sisters that are young, so that when it's time to go to college and leave the home, they have that seed planted in them, so that wherever they are, they look for a community to establish themselves with. So that part's important, but I think sometimes we also are not very successful at it. And that's where I think it's critical to have almost a third space. What I call is something, an organization or an entity or something outside of the masjid that children or youth or those people who are born Muslim and decide to be more serious or activate their Islam, that we have that third space. Because for whatever reason, sometimes people don't feel like they want to connect with the masjid. However, they might want to connect with that third space. And that's why I've chosen to get involved with a group called Embrace that is underneath ICNA, because the value of that is that third space. And inshallah, those people who are born Muslim, who for whatever reason decide to leave Islam or leave that masjid, hopefully they'll grab onto something like Embrace and have that third space.
That's interesting. So what made you make that transition from, being like, sort of kumbaya sort of thing, Christian today and Muslim tomorrow, to actually, dedicating your spirituality to one faith sort of thing?
So let me clarify that. So my dad was in Oakland, Muslim, and my mom was in San Francisco, Christian. So I kind of had both growing up. And then as an adult, then I decided in 1997, actually, I decided I needed to get closer to God. And I talked to both my parents. And I already had a Bible in the house, and I had a Quran in the house from them. So I let both of them know that I needed to be more serious. So that's when I just really isolated myself. I went to work, but I isolated myself and read both books and just was begging God for guidance. What should I do here? And in that process is when I read Surah Maryam.
How old were you back then, if you don't mind asking?
I was 35 maybe. That was like 20 some odd years ago. So 90. So see, I was grown. I was grown and an adult. Although I knew of both religions.
How was it for you? Did the Muslim community take it well? Did they accept you with welcoming arms, or was it like, we have a lot of those people sort of thing? Did they? Because the thing is that we see a lot of converts, the first couple of weeks with hugs and we give them gifts and stuff, and then poof, 2 weeks later they're nowhere to be found.
They're not to be found. Yeah, alhamdulillah, after reading Surah Maryam, I called my dad and I said, I want to be Muslim. And basically it all came about Isa alayhi salam, because even going to church as a young adult and all that time, I never really felt that Jesus was God. So Surah Maryam told me that Isa alayhi salam is a serious prophet and not a God. That hit home. That resonated deeply. And I knew that was my truth.
That's the fitrah right there.
Yeah, exactly. It woke up. It just woke up. Then I read Job, who was one of my favorite ones, and I knew in Christianity about Job. Once I saw he was in
Job is Ayub in Arabic, right?
Yeah, Ayub. Yeah,
and that's probably in the Old Testament, isn't it?
Yeah, he's in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So that was very deep for me to see that many of the prophets that I knew and loved in Christianity were also prophets in Islam. May Allah be pleased with all of them. So that's when I decided I knew I had to be Muslim, and called my dad, took my shahada. My family, no one, I didn't have a negative response from my family, because they knew, because of me calling myself a Muslim Christian, they knew that Islam was in part of me.
And also your dad was,
Yeah, and they knew all of that. So when I went public with it, no one in my family really had a big problem with it. Everyone was pretty supportive of it, I have to say. I'm very fortunate and lucky because a lot of people don't have that experience. Their family turns from them, they shun them, and they turn them away. When I went to the masjid,
This was in Oakland.
and now I'm in Sacramento.
Okay, now you're in Sacramento.
Now I moved from the Bay. I went to college in San Jose State. That's when I separated from my dad. That's when my dad became a Sunni Muslim. He converted over. I moved to Sacramento.
What was he before? Was he like the nation?
It was
type of
all
thing?
nation. It was pretty much nation stuff. And so the teaching was a little off, but the brotherhood and the bonding was solid. So when I moved to
can imagine.
Sacramento, he was Sunni Muslim at that point. So then he went through that detoxing me, taking all that out and helping me to learn Sunni Islam. That's when I took my Shahada.
It seems like you didn't have like a bad experience necessarily.
I'm very fortunate in my case, but from what I've seen out there, a lot of people who are black who become Muslim, their family does shun them. They do have a bad experience sometimes because their families either don't practice any religion or they're very deeply founded in Christianity. And sometimes those people will shun you, who announce that they're Muslim and don't eat pork, and we have pray, and we have these beautiful rules in the foundation of our deen. But sometimes in families they don't like that, so they shun it. And then those people kind of come to Islam deeper because now their family's not accepting them. But then within Islam, sometimes you can run into people who want to try to change your name, who tell you can't ride your skateboard anymore, who try to take everything away from you, and it's out of love, but they're just they're throwing culture at people as opposed to Islam at people.
Yeah.
And when they hit that cultural side, for some people that's a brick wall. Sometimes they will face very soft, covert, gentle racism. No doubt they bump into that, and sometimes they don't. But the culture and the human being side of it is what makes some people turn from Islam. Yeah, leaning on the community can depends on the community actually, and it depends on the individuals. Some masjids, there's a group or a niche where they sort of embrace new Muslims, and they learn the deen, they learn how to pray, and they absolutely flourish. And there's other cases where it is not everyone, clearly, and it's not absolutely widespread, but sometimes a new Muslim coming into a community may face certain things that are maybe disillusioning, and they just have problems.
Yeah.
And the family shunning them, and those few people within the community that are causing them not to feel comfortable will make them turn away from the deen.
Yeah, interesting.
And that's where we need to catch them. We need to catch them and help them grow and to be strong.
Yeah. What are the asks of me, for example, as a Muslim? I have a neighbor who's a convert. I have a classmate. I have an acquaintance. What am I ought to do or ought not do?
I think personally, the best thing to do is just to embrace that individual for who they are and not necessarily try to wholesale change them, and just show good character. So, we don't need to tell someone who just embraced Islam, okay, you need to change how you dress and start to wear this. You need to stop, I keep going to riding the skateboard because there's a brother down in the Bay Area named Jordan Richter who has a beautiful video where he was a serious skateboarder. And when he became Muslim, he ran into some individuals who told him that he can no longer do that. And he was very, very good friends with Tony Hawk, who blew up in the skating community. So that's an example to me how sometimes we reach out to new Muslims and try to strip them of their American culture.
I'll be interested what the justification was, to be honest. Like, what kind of justification was like, you're not allowed to do skateboarding?
It's haram.
Well, that would be really intriguing to get to know the justification for that.
Exactly, and that's the thing. I can't recall within the film what the justification that was that they gave him, but they did give him something. I'm just not recalling that now. But that's an example to me of how people can look at a new Muslim and try to wholesale change that individual. I think that's the problem.
I think also from converts' perspective, I mean, you can obviously talk from that perspective.
Sure.
But for them, I think it's very, like, there was a hadith of Prophet ﷺ when he mentioned that, you know, be careful of who you take your knowledge from. So, you know, a person having a beard, a person just going to the masjid any Joe Schmo doesn't necessarily, you know, their advice can, you know, take it to heart in a loving way, but just be careful where you take it from, because some people, they might be out of, like, you know, caring, but it's just wrong advice, take you to a wrong direction. So, I mean, that's just one thing that perhaps you can touch more on, like, you know, just be careful where you take your knowledge from.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think the Prophet ﷺ, when he sent people out to spread the word of Islam, you know, one example was in Africa. You know, he was the people he dispatched there, he was advising them to allow people to keep their culture but teach Islam. So if there's something in our behavior or whatever that contradicts Islam, then let's talk about that. Let's have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
But if it's just the cultural side, that's where we need to be careful. And your point of who we take our information from needs to be very careful. And sometimes a Muslim doesn't know. A new Muslim doesn't know.
Yeah.
They see a beautiful thobe and a big beard, and they feel, oh, I need to take deen from that person, but he may not be the right person. But the new Muslim doesn't always know that.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's up to us as Muslims, as the veteran Muslims, if we want to call it that, to be very careful about how we handle new Muslims and how we teach them. The Islam came down to the Prophet, the Quran, over many, many, many years. So therefore, we need to take that same approach with new Muslims.
Okay, I mean, we talked about your background and some of, you know, your convert experience, but like Rashid Thomas, you know, what brings you on? What packs a punch? What, you know, brings fire into your body, into your belly, into your body?
Well, I think what
are you all about? You know,
what am I all about? Oh, I think and this may sound cliche-ish, but I think the beauty of the deen. You know, one of my serious hobbies is photography and videography, as we touched about a little bit.
Really,
and within photography, just slowing down and seeing a lost creation. It could be a flower. It could be a person's smile. It could be how a building is built. You know, all of that is from God. And what photography does is allows a person to just slow down and to see that. And to capture it. You know, I call my photography business and videography captured light productions. And it's more of the captured light piece, because everything is made of light. But to just stop and catch it, see it, shoot it, and whether someone else enjoys it or not, that's not really the main focus. I need to enjoy it. I need to like it. So seeing God's creation in that sense.
Yeah. Like, what's your photography signature? What's one thing that, you know, if I see a picture, I know this is him taking a picture. This is him taking a picture. Or I took a video.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's making me think and ponder. I think my signature is sort of the tight photography. I tend to like that. I tend to like catching emotion, people at events. You know, if a person is smiling because someone said something that they like, I want to catch that. And then I want to zoom in on it and maybe play with the coloring of it, maybe play with something in it that I like. And I like long lenses because I want to stand in the shadows. I want you to not see me, and I want to catch that person. That's kind of my game. That's what I like to do.
Lurking beneath the shadows.
Yeah.
Batman.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, I like to sit in the shot. I love street photography.
Yeah.
Because that allows me to just like lean up against the wall, and you may not even see me, and you're walking down the street with your spouse. One of my most favorite photos that I've ever taken of all the years that I've been shooting. The photo I like the most is there's a couple in San Francisco sitting at a table at a coffee shop, and they're both on their phone. They're not talking to each other. They're not communicating with each other. Classic. They're both on their phone with a cup of coffee and a beautiful background of that coffee shop. I love it because they didn't know I was there. They didn't see me. But the fact that they're not communicating or talking to each other.
Probably texting each other.
Facing each other. They're facing each other with the phones. Yeah. Texting or doing whatever they do on their phones. Because we're supposed to communicate with each other. We're supposed to talk to each other. We're supposed to show good character with each other. Yeah.
Picture speaks volumes. I don't want to make it too long, but I guess you said your parents were in the nation back in the day, in the civil rights movement and stuff. Did that carry on with you until today, or is it just something in the past that you perhaps get flashbacks of, or just something that you're nostalgic about, or something?
I think it built me. Being in my dad's bakery and seeing all those Muslims come in, and the brotherhood that they had, and my dad always telling me, we might see something on the news, and he's like, don't always believe that. Peel the onion back. Don't always accept everything that you're said.
Peel the onion back. Peel the onion back. What does that mean?
That means when I see something, that situation can be like an onion, and just peel the layers back.
Oh, okay. Peel it back.
Peel the layers back. So try to get a better understanding of what you see, as opposed to just accepting things on face value. What also had an impact was the Nation of Islam had its own newspaper. So that newspaper sometimes was contrary to what I might see on ABC, NBC, or CBS. So it built something in me to just think. But I think my formative years was a lot of color TV with ABC and NBC and CBS, and to embrace what they say, but also look behind what's behind the curtain. What is that? And my dad built that in me, and I think that carries forward to today.
That's amazing. So, Brother Rashid, where can people find you? Have you got like an Instagram page, or I guess social media pages that people can follow on, or some sort of email?
Yeah, I do have an Instagram page that's called Captured Light Productions. So if they go to Instagram, they can find me there. I have an email address, capturedlightproductions@gmail.com. Personally, my name is Rashid bin Qadir. So anyone can find me there. Rashid bin Qadir @gmail.com. I guess last but certainly not least, I do a lot of volunteer, or try to do a lot of volunteer work at Salam. So you can go to Salam's Facebook page and find me there, or Salam's website.
Yeah, and you're also running the converts group over there, which has been probably one of the more successful ones in the community for the past at least couple of decades, I'd say, to be honest.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. A couple of questions. Have you ever Googled yourself?
Yes, I've Googled myself. I was curious to see what would come up and what people would know. I Googled myself and my business.
Sweet. How far back can you name your ancestors?
My parents, great-great-grandparents, everything after that is sort of fuzzy.
And what's your favorite food?
My favorite food? French fries.
Oh, come on, man. I thought you were going to say like some, national or traditional dish or something.
No, French fries.
American Muslims. What was the rudest comment you ever got regarding being a convert?
Someone assuming I don't know how to pray, and I've been Muslim for many years. There's just an assumption that there's things I don't know, although I've been Muslim a very long time.
That's really interesting. It reminds me of something. Once I was praying Tarawih, Salam actually specifically. So I don't mean to.
No.
But I was praying Salam, and I think I forgot to make wudu or something like that. But I basically had to leave, and then obviously the rows are packed, so I need to pass in front of a couple of people. to get to the back to try to go out to the bathroom. And this guy sees me. I'm passing, like try to get to the end to go around and go back. And this guy holds me and he pushes me all the way to the back. So, like why pass in front of people? Unbeknownst to him that you're not allowed to pass in front of, for example, when it's a Jama'ah, in front of the Imam, you're not allowed to, but, what do I do? Do I just stand there for the rest of Salah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was...
you just gotta go. I think the rudest thing was that I was at a masjid in Los Angeles with my son, and we went to Juma. And, after Juma, you pray your sunnah prayers. And so my son, he's never not been around Muslims. So my son, he I think he has a clue. But after Juma, we're outside and we're putting our shoes on, and the guy came up to my son, and my son's like 18 or 19, and he said, long story short, he said, when you pray your sunnah prayers, you should always look at the ground and not look anywhere else. And so I went to the young man, to the gentleman, he was an older guy, and I said, well, if you are supposed to do that, how do you know where my son was looking? And it was a little bit offensive because I know where the guy was coming from. He saw a young black male and assumed he didn't know his sunnah prayers. So out of love and compassion, he decided he wanted to tell him how to pray sunnah prayers. But it was a little more offensive than I think he really understood, because the undercurrent of all of that was that he assumed my son didn't know. I don't know. I do feel it's kind of important to touch on this point that if you see someone, if you see an African American in the community, don't assume that he or she knows very little. That's true of any culture. Always assume the best of someone as opposed to assume the worst, and don't be suspicious of people. And let's all try to focus on Surah Hujurat. That's very, very, very critical, important in Surah for all Muslims, because it teaches us a lot about adab and how we should treat one another.
It's chapter 49, if I'm not mistaken.
It's Surah 49, Surah Hujurat. Yeah. Please, that would be my advice to my younger self, to the community out there, and to everyone. Let's spend some time looking at that surah and acting upon it, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khair. Thanks for your...
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Yeah, I know.
I think
I know. I feel like I was random, like I just went all over the place.
That's what podcasts are all about, bro.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay.